How to Convince and Manipulate Others. Let's be honest about the title of this book. The words convince and especially manipulate can make you feel a little uneasy. They bring to mind images of trickery, of forcing people to do things against their will. But I want you to forget that, because at its core, manipulation is simply the art of handling something with skill. You manipulate the clay to create a sculpture. A physical therapist manipulates a muscle to heal it. And we, as humans, are constantly manipulating or guiding the world around us to get things done. When you comfort a friend, you are guiding their emotions. When you ask for a raise, you are guiding your boss's perception of your value. When you tell a child a story to get them to eat their vegetables, you are guiding their behavior. This book isn't about dark, deceptive tricks. It's about understanding. It's about understanding the fundamental laws of human nature so you can communicate more effectively, build stronger connections, and move through the world with more purpose and grace. It's about learning the language that people are already speaking, even if they don't know it. This is not a weapon, this is a key. And over the next 5 chapters, I'm going to show you how to use it. Before we begin, I have a question for you. Think back to a time you tried to convince someone of something, anything at all, and it just didn't work. What was the situation? You don't have to share the outcome, just the topic. Was it about a movie choice, a business decision, a family matter? Drop your answer in the comments below. Let's see how common these challenges are. Chapter 1. The Mirror. First, mastering yourself. Before you can ever hope to guide the thoughts, feelings, or actions of another human being, you must first come to terms with the most complex and challenging person you will ever meet. That person is you. You are the starting point of every negotiation, the foundation of every argument, and the source of every ounce of influence you will ever wield. Any attempt to convince others that is built on a shaky foundation of self-doubt, uncertainty, or a weak internal story is like trying to build a skyscraper on a swamp. It is destined to lean, to crack, and ultimately, to collapse. This chapter is not about learning clever lines or persuasive tricks. It is about forging the steel within yourself. It is about building that solid, unshakable foundation from which all true and lasting influence is born. We are going to look in the mirror and we are going to master the person we see. Let's start by demolishing a huge myth, perhaps the biggest lie we are ever told about personal power. This is the confidence myth. We are taught to believe that confidence is a personality trait. It's like eye color or height. You are either born with it or you are not. You see someone walk into a room head held high, speaking with clarity and ease, and you think, wow, they are so lucky. They are a confident person. And you see yourself, perhaps with your heart beating a little faster, your palms getting a little sweaty before a big meeting, and you think, I'm just not a confident person. This is fundamentally wrong. This single belief is a cage that has held millions of people back from achieving their potential. Confidence is not a trait. Confidence is a skill, and like any skill, whether it's learning to play the guitar, speak a new language, or cook a perfect steak, it can be learned. It can be practiced. It can be developed. But how? What is the secret ingredient? It is simpler and more profound than you can imagine. True, unshakable confidence is the result of one thing and one thing only: keeping the promises you make to yourself. That's it. That is the entire secret. It is not about pretending. It is not about faking it till you make it, although that can be a small part of the process. It is about building a history of integrity with yourself. Think about your relationships with other people. Who do you trust the most? You trust the person who does what they say they will do. If your friend says they will be there at 8 o'clock and they consistently arrive at 8, you trust them. Your belief in their word is strong. If another friend says they will be there at 8 but consistently shows up at 9 or not at all, your trust erodes. You can't rely on them. Your confidence in their word is weak. Now, turn that lens inward. Every single day you make dozens of small promises to yourself. You say, I'm going to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, and then the alarm goes off and you hit the snooze button. You just broke a promise. You say, I'm going to eat a healthy lunch today, and then a co-worker suggests pizza and you give in. You just broke a promise. You say, I'm going to finish that report before I go home. And then you get distracted by social media and decide to leave it for tomorrow. Broken promise. Each of these moments may seem small and insignificant. A single broken promise doesn't feel like a big deal, but they are not insignificant. They are everything. Each time you break a promise to yourself, you are sending a powerful subconscious message to your own mind. The message is, my word is not law. My intentions are not serious. I cannot be trusted. You are literally training your brain to doubt yourself. So when a big moment arrives, when you need to stand up in a meeting and pitch an idea, or ask for that raise, or have a difficult conversation with a loved one, your subconscious mind is already screaming at you, don't listen to this person. They don't follow through, they are not reliable. That feeling of doubt, that hesitation, that fear, is the logical result of the thousands of small promises you have broken to yourself over the years. Conversely, every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. You are sending a different message. You are telling your subconscious mind, I am a person of my word. My intentions lead to action. I can be trusted. When you say you will wake up at 6:30 and the alarm goes off and your body wants to stay in the warm bed, but you swing your legs out and stand up, you have just made a deposit in your confidence account. When you promise yourself you'll go for a walk during your lunch break, and you do it, that's another deposit. When you commit to making that one difficult phone call you've been putting off, and you pick up the phone and dial, you make a huge deposit. These small acts of personal integrity are the building blocks of real earned confidence. Think of confidence as a muscle. You wouldn't go to the gym for the first time and try to lift 300 pounds. You would hurt yourself. You start with small weights. You do the repetitions, you stay consistent. Day after day, week after week. Over time, the muscle gets stronger. The weight that once felt heavy now feels light. The promises you make to yourself are the weights for your confidence muscle. Start small. Don't promise yourself you will run a marathon tomorrow if you haven't run in 5 years. That is setting yourself up for failure, which is just another broken promise. Instead, make a micro-promise. Promise yourself this. Tomorrow morning, the very first thing I will do after I turn off my alarm is drink 1 full glass of water. That's it. It's a simple, achievable promise. And when you do it, I want you to take a moment and consciously acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I did what I said I would do. Feel that small spark of satisfaction. That is the feeling of confidence being built. The next day you can do it again. Maybe you add another micro-promise. I will make my bed before I leave my room. Keep it. Acknowledge it. You are now 2 for 2. You are building a winning streak with yourself. This process is so powerful because it rewires your brain. It creates new neural pathways. It builds a track record of success that your mind cannot argue with. When you walk into that big meeting a few months from now, after consistently keeping these small promises to yourself, your internal state will be completely different. Your subconscious will no longer be a voice of doubt, but a voice of support saying, listen up, this person follows through. When they decide to do something, it gets done. That is authentic confidence. It isn't loud, it isn't arrogant. It is a quiet, solid, internal knowing that you are reliable. And when you feel that on the inside, people will feel it on the outside. There is a fascinating psychological principle that ties directly into this, known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. It was first described in 1999 by 2 social psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. In simple terms, their research found that people with low ability at a task tend to dramatically overestimate their own ability. Conversely, people with high ability tend to underestimate how good they are. The study that brought this to light is almost comical. They gave tests to undergraduate students on topics like grammar, logic, and humor. Then, they asked the students to estimate how well they did. The students who scored in the bottom quarter of the test, the ones who performed the worst on average, believed they had scored in the top 40%. They were not only incompetent, they were unaware of their own incompetence. Their lack of skill prevented them from being able to recognize their own mistakes. You have met this person. This is the person at work who has no idea what they're doing, but speaks with the most authority. This is the amateur musician who thinks they are a rock star. They are standing on top of what Dunning and Kruger called Mount Stupid. On the other end of the spectrum were the top performers. The students who aced the test on average underestimated their performance. They assumed that if the tasks were easy for them, they must be easy for everyone else too. They were competent, but they lacked confidence in how their skills compared to others. This is the expert engineer who is hesitant to speak up in a meeting because she assumes everyone else already knows what she is thinking. This is the brilliant writer who is terrified to publish his work because he thinks it is not good enough. The goal, then, is to find the realistic, healthy middle ground. It is to build a confidence that is based on actual, provable competence. And the way you build that competence is by starting with those micro-promises. Each kept promise is a piece of data. It is evidence. You are not just telling yourself you are capable, you are proving it to yourself, one small action at a time. This moves you away from the unearned arrogance of Mount Stupid and pulls you up from the valley of self-doubt. It places you on a solid plateau of earned confidence, where you know your strengths and are aware of your weaknesses, and you are comfortable with both, because you know you are a person who can be trusted to improve. You are a person who follows through, and that knowledge, that deep internal integrity, is the ultimate foundation for influencing anyone. A person who doesn't trust themselves can never earn the genuine trust of others. Now let's talk about the next layer. Once you have begun to build that internal confidence, how do you project it? How do you let the world know that you are a person of substance? This brings us to the power of certainty. Certainty is the external expression of your internal confidence. It is the bridge between how you feel about yourself and how others perceive you. People are drawn to certainty like moths to a flame. In a world of confusion, doubt, and endless options, a person who is certain stands out. They become a leader. They become a source of stability. People don't follow the best idea. They follow the idea presented with the most conviction. Think about it in your own life. Imagine you are at a restaurant with a group of friends and no one can decide what to order. Everyone is saying, "I don't know, what are you getting?" Maybe the pasta or the fish. The conversation goes in circles. Then one person puts their menu down and says, with a calm, steady voice, "I know what we're doing. We are ordering the family-style platter to share, and we're getting a bottle of that red wine. It will be perfect." What happens? A wave of relief washes over the table. Everyone agrees. Yes, great idea. Why? Was it the best possible choice on the menu? Maybe, maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was that someone broke the cycle of indecision with a dose of certainty. They provided a clear path forward, and everyone was happy to follow it. Certainty is broadcasted through 3 primary channels: your tone of voice, your body language, and your word choice. Let's break these down because mastering them is crucial. First, your tone of voice. A voice of certainty is steady and modulated. It doesn't get excessively high or low. The most common vocal tell of uncertainty is called upspeak, or the upward inflection. This is when your sentences sound like questions, even when they are statements. For example, an uncertain person might say, "I think we should go with marketing plan B because it seems to have a better return on investment." That upward tilt at the end of each phrase completely undermines the statement. It communicates a desperate need for validation. It is asking, "Am I right? Do you agree with me? Please tell me I'm right." A certain person delivers the same information with a downward inflection. Their sentences end with a period, not a question mark. They would say, "We should go with marketing plan B. It has a better return on investment." The statement is declarative. It is final. It projects conviction. This doesn't mean you have to be loud or aggressive. In fact, often the most certain person in the room is the one speaking at a calm, measured volume. They don't need to shout. Their conviction carries the weight. Practice this in your daily life. When you are ordering coffee, don't say, "Can I get a large coffee?" like a question. State your intention. "I'll have a large coffee." Hear the difference, feel the difference. It is a small shift that makes a massive impact on how you are perceived. Second, your body language. Your body is constantly shouting information about your internal state. An uncertain person fidgets. They tap their fingers, bounce their leg, play with their hair, or shift their weight from foot to foot. Their movements are jerky and anxious. They are physically leaking their nervous energy into the room. They might cross their arms, creating a defensive barrier, or hunch their shoulders, trying to make themselves smaller. A person broadcasting certainty is still. Their stillness is not rigid or tense, but relaxed and controlled. They own the space they occupy. When they move, their gestures are deliberate and purposeful. They use their hands to emphasize a point rather than to release nervous energy. They maintain open body language, with their shoulders back and their posture upright. And critically, they master eye contact. They are not afraid to look people in the eye when they speak. It doesn't mean an unbroken, intimidating stare. It means a comfortable, confident gaze that says, "I am present, I am engaged, I believe what I am saying." When you are in your next conversation, pay attention to your body. Is your energy scattered, or is it contained? Aim for stillness. Aim for deliberate movement. It will radically change the nonverbal signals you are sending. Third, your word choice. The language of uncertainty is filled with weak, qualifying words. Words like, "I think," "maybe," "perhaps," "kind of," "sort of," and "I just wanted to say." These words are poison to persuasion. They are apologies for your own opinion. When you say, "I just think that maybe we could sort of try a different approach," you have already lost. You have communicated to everyone listening that you don't even fully believe in your own idea. Eliminate these words from your vocabulary in important situations. Instead of "I think we should do this," say, "We should do this," or "My recommendation is this," or "The best path forward is this." Be direct, be clear. Use strong, simple language. This doesn't mean you can't be collaborative or listen to other opinions. But when it is your turn to state your case, state it with the full force of conviction. Don't water it down with weak language. Your words should be a reflection of your internal certainty, not a shield to hide behind. The combination of a steady vocal tone, still body language, and direct word choice creates a powerful aura of certainty. It makes people want to listen. It makes them feel that you are a credible, reliable source of information. It is the outward manifestation of the internal work you have been doing by keeping your promises to yourself. Confidence is the foundation, and certainty is the structure you build upon it. But even with confidence and certainty, your efforts to influence will be scattered and ineffective if you don't know what you are aiming for. This brings us to the third critical element of mastering yourself, defining your intent. You absolutely cannot hit a target that you cannot see. So many people enter important conversations, negotiations, or meetings with a vague, fuzzy idea of what they want. They might say, "I want the meeting to go well," or "I hope they like my proposal," or "I want to convince them." These are not intentions. These are wishes, they are hopes. And hope is not a strategy. A failure to define your specific intent is the number one reason why people fail to persuade. They don't know exactly what they want, so they can't ask for it clearly. Their communication is muddy, and they end up getting a muddy result or no result at all. Before you enter any conversation where you want to influence the outcome, you must take the time to define your intent with absolute, laser-like clarity. It is the most important preparatory work you can do. I want to give you a framework for this, a simple but profoundly effective process for defining your intent. I call it the 4 W's of intent. It stands for what, who, why, and walk away. Before any important interaction, you need to sit down and answer these 4 questions for yourself. The first W is what. What is the single, tangible, measurable outcome you want to achieve? Be brutally specific. "I want them to like my idea" is not an outcome. "I want them to approve the $45,000 budget for my project by the end of this meeting" is an outcome. "I want to have a better relationship with my partner" is not an outcome. "I want my partner and I to agree on a specific plan for sharing household chores" written down is an outcome. The more specific you are, the more clearly you can steer the conversation toward that single point. You need to be able to know, with a simple yes or no, whether you achieved your goal. If your desired outcome is fuzzy, you will never know if you have won. Defining the what gives you your destination. It is the address you plug into your GPS. Without it, you are just driving aimlessly. The second W is who. Who is the person I am about to speak with? This question is not about their name or their job title. It is about understanding their world. What do they care about? What are their goals? What are their pressures? What keeps them up at night? You must step out of your own shoes and into theirs. Are they motivated by data and logic? Or are they moved by stories and emotion? Are they focused on saving money, or are they focused on gaining status? Are they worried about looking bad in front of their own boss? The more you understand the who, the better you can tailor your message to resonate with them. We will dive much deeper into this in the next chapter, but for now, the crucial step is to simply ask the question. Stop thinking about yourself and your own needs and spend 5 minutes genuinely contemplating the world of the person you are about to talk to. The third W is why. Why should they give you what you want? This is the most important question, and the one that most people ignore. They are so focused on why they want something that they completely forget to consider the other person's motivation. You must find the what's in it for them. You need to frame your request not as something that benefits you, but as something that benefits them. For example, when asking for a raise, the wrong approach is to focus on your why. I need more money because my rent went up and I have more expenses. Your boss, frankly, does not care about your expenses. That is your problem. The right approach is to focus on their why. You should frame the raise as an investment that will benefit them and the company. By investing more in my role, you will be securing the skills and dedication that led to the X, Y, and Z successes, and empowering me to deliver even greater results on our upcoming projects. You are not asking for a handout. You are presenting a mutually beneficial business proposition. Always, always, always frame your request in terms of the other person's self-interest. Your what must connect to their why. The fourth and final W is walk away. What is your walk-away point? At what point is the deal not worth it? What is your plan B? Knowing your walk-away point is a source of immense power. It gives you freedom. If you go into a negotiation feeling like you absolutely must get a yes, you become desperate. And desperation is the enemy of influence. People can smell it from a mile away, and it gives them all the power. But if you have a clear walk-away point and a viable alternative, you can negotiate from a position of strength and relaxation. Your plan B could be another job offer, a different project you can pursue, or simply the acceptance that this is not the right time or the right opportunity. Having a walk-away point doesn't mean you are negative or pessimistic. It means you respect yourself. It means you know your own value, and you are not willing to compromise it beyond a certain predetermined point. It prevents you from making a bad deal out of fear. So before your next important conversation, take out a piece of paper or open a new document and write down these 4 headings. What, who, why, walk away. And do the work. Write it out. This simple 10-minute exercise will transform the quality of your interactions. It will give you a clarity and a purpose that will shine through in your voice, your body language, and your words. You will no longer be a ship tossed about on the waves of conversation. You will be the captain, with a firm hand on the rudder, a clear destination in sight, and a detailed map of how to get there. Finally, we arrive at the deepest and most foundational layer of self-mastery, your internal story. The most important, most influential, and most persistent person you will ever have to convince of anything is yourself. All day, every day, there is a narrator in your head. It is the voice that comments on everything you do. It interprets events, judges your actions, and tells you who you are. This internal story is the software that runs your entire life. If the software is programmed with viruses of self-doubt, criticism, and limitation, then no amount of external technique will ever lead to lasting success. You will always find a way to sabotage yourself, to pull back from the brink of victory, because your internal story tells you that you are not the kind of person who deserves to win. Many of us are living inside a story that was written for us by others. Perhaps it was a parent who told you that you weren't smart enough. Perhaps it was a teacher who told you that you were lazy. Perhaps it was a childhood bully who made you feel small. Or perhaps you wrote the story yourself, based on a few failures that you have allowed to define your entire identity. You failed a test, so your story became, "I am bad at school. You got rejected, so your story became, I am unlovable. You made a mistake at work, so your story became, I am incompetent. These stories feel like facts. They feel like the absolute truth, but they are not. They are just stories. And the most empowering realization you can ever have is this: you are the author. And if you are the author, you can pick up the pen at any moment and write a new chapter. You can edit the manuscript. You can change the narrative. This is not about lying to yourself or engaging in baseless positive thinking. It is not about looking in the mirror and saying, I am a billionaire, when your bank account is empty. The brain is too smart for that. It will reject the lie. This is about reframing. It is about choosing a more empowering and more useful interpretation of the facts. Let's say the fact is, you get very nervous before speaking in public. The old story might be, I am terrible at public speaking. I am an anxious person, I always mess up. This story is a dead end. It offers no path for growth. It is a prison sentence. A new, reframed story could be, I am a person who is working on mastering the skill of public speaking. The nervous energy I feel is my body getting ready for an important performance, and I am learning how to channel that energy into passion and focus. Do you see the difference? The facts are the same, you still feel the nerves, but the meaning you assign to those facts has changed completely. The second story is a story of growth, of possibility, of power. It creates a path forward. I want to give you a practical technique to begin rewriting your script. It is a simple 3-step process: catch, challenge, and change. First, you must catch the negative thought. You have to become a detective of your own mind. The internal narrator is so automatic that we often don't even notice what it is saying. You have to start paying attention. When you feel a wave of anxiety or procrastination or anger, stop for a second and ask yourself, what story did I just tell myself? What was the specific thought that triggered this feeling? It might be, they're all going to think my idea is stupid. That's the catch. You've identified the toxic narrative. Second, you must challenge that thought. You have to cross-examine it like a lawyer in a courtroom. Ask yourself, is this thought 100% absolutely true? Is it true that every single person in that room will think my idea is stupid? Is it possible that some might like it? Have I ever had an idea that people thought was smart? Is it possible that I am not a perfect mind reader? The goal of the challenge is not to pretend the thought doesn't exist, but to rob it of its power. You are exposing it for what it is, not a fact, but a distorted, exaggerated, and unhelpful opinion. Third, you must change the thought to a new, more empowering one. This is where you actively rewrite the script. You replace the old, unhelpful story with a better one. So, they're all going to think my idea is stupid becomes, I have prepared thoroughly. I have a valuable perspective to share. I will present my idea with confidence, and I'm open to any feedback I receive. The outcome of the meeting does not define my worth. This new thought is balanced, realistic, and empowering. It focuses on what you can control, which is your own action, rather than what you can't control, which is the exact thoughts of other people. This catch, challenge, change process is a workout for your mind. The first few times you do it, it will feel clunky and unnatural. Your old stories have deep grooves in your brain, and they will fight to stay there. But like any workout, the more you do it, the stronger you will get. With consistent practice, you will create new neural pathways. The new, empowering stories will become your automatic default. You will build an internal coach instead of an internal critic. To support this process, I want you to start an evidence log. This can be a physical notebook or a note on your phone. Every single day at the end of the day, I want you to write down 3 things that went well, 3 small victories. It doesn't matter how small they are. Maybe you kept a micro promise to yourself. Maybe you spoke up in a meeting, even if your voice shook a little. Maybe you made a healthy food choice. Maybe you held the door for a stranger and they smiled. Write down this evidence. Why? Because your negative internal story thrives on ignoring the positive. It selectively filters your reality to only show you proof of your limitations. Your evidence log is your secret weapon against this filter. It provides you with cold, hard data that your story is wrong. When your internal critic starts saying, You never do anything right. You can mentally pull out your evidence log and say, that is not true. Yesterday, I accomplished these 3 things. The day before, I did these 3. The evidence shows that I am a person who is capable and who is making progress. Mastering yourself is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong practice. It is the daily commitment to keeping your promises, to projecting certainty, to defining your intent, and to authoring an empowering internal story. This is the real work. The techniques you will learn in the coming chapters about influencing others are incredibly powerful, but they are just tools. A tool is only as effective as the person who wields it. By focusing on the mirror first, by building this unshakable internal foundation, you ensure that you are wielding these tools not from a place of weakness or neediness, but from a place of strength, integrity, and authentic power. You become the person who doesn't need to try too hard to convince, because your very presence, your quiet confidence, and your clear purpose do most of the work for you. You are the foundation. Let's make it solid as a rock. Chapter 2. Decoding the Human Code. The Art of Listening and Seeing. In the first chapter, we turned the mirror inward. We worked on building the solid foundation of self-confidence, certainty, and clarity of purpose. That was the essential first step, because you cannot lead others from a place you have not been yourself. Now we are going to turn our focus outward. We are going to shift from broadcasting our own internal state to receiving the signals that are constantly being broadcasted by everyone around us. This chapter is about becoming a master decoder of the human code. It is about developing a skill that is so rare and so powerful that it almost feels like a superpower. That skill is the art of truly listening and truly seeing. Most people move through the world trapped in the prison of their own perspective. Their internal monologue is so loud that it drowns out everything else. They are so focused on what they are going to say next, on how they are being perceived, on winning the argument, that they completely miss the flood of vital information being offered to them in every single interaction. Persuasion, at its highest level, is not about talking. It is not about having the cleverest argument or the most polished speech. It is about understanding the other person so deeply, so completely, that you know what they need, what they fear, and what they truly desire, often before they are even consciously aware of it themselves. When you have that level of understanding, guiding them toward a certain conclusion becomes effortless. It feels less like convincing and more like a natural collaboration. They will feel understood by you in a way they rarely experience, and that feeling of being truly seen creates a bond of trust that is more persuasive than any fact or figure. So, how do we begin? We begin by shutting up. We begin with the most underrated and most powerful communication tool in the entire human arsenal: listening. I don't mean the passive act of hearing sounds while you wait for your turn to speak. I mean active, focused, deep listening. The kind of listening that is a full body, full mind activity. The kind of listening that makes the other person the absolute center of the universe for a few moments. Let's first be clear about what bad listening looks like, because it is the default setting for almost everyone. The most common form of bad listening is simply listening to reply. You are not hearing their words to understand their meaning. You are scanning their sentences for a keyword, a flaw, or a pause, where you can jump in and make your own point. Your entire mental faculty is dedicated to formulating your rebuttal. You might be nodding your head, but your mind is 1,000 miles away, rehearsing your next line. This is not a conversation. It is a verbal duel where two people are just reloading their own weapons while the other is firing. Another form of bad listening is what I call autobiographical listening. This is when you filter everything the other person says through the lens of your own experience. Your friend says, "I'm so stressed out at work, my boss is piling on the projects," and you immediately jump in with, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean. One time my boss..." And then you are off, telling your own story. You think you are showing empathy, that you are connecting. But what you have actually done is hijacked the conversation. You have taken the spotlight from them and shone it on yourself. You have subtly communicated that your experience is more important or more interesting than theirs. To become a master decoder, you must abandon these habits. You must adopt a new philosophy of conversation, one where your primary goal is not to be interesting, but to be interested. This is the core of active listening. It is a set of skills designed to do one thing: make the other person feel profoundly and completely heard. When you can give someone this gift, you create an incredible foundation of rapport and trust. The first and most fundamental skill of active listening is the strategic use of silence. Most people are terrified of silence. A pause of more than 2 seconds in a conversation can feel like an eternity. We rush to fill that void with noise, with ums and ahs, with anything to break the awkward tension. But for the master persuader, silence is not a void. It is a tool. It is a stage. When you create a space of silence, you are inviting the other person to step into it and reveal more of themselves. Here is a simple, actionable technique I want you to practice. I call it the 3-second rule. The next time you are in a conversation, especially an important one, and the other person finishes a sentence, I want you to silently count to 3 in your head before you say a single word. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. It will feel uncomfortable at first. It will feel unnatural. Your instincts will scream at you to jump in. Resist. Just hold the space. Maintain gentle eye contact and a patient expression. What you will find will astonish you. In that 3-second gap, one of 2 magical things will happen. Often the other person, also feeling the pull of the silence, will continue talking. And this is where the gold is. The first thing a person says is usually their prepared, rehearsed thought. The things they say to fill the silence are often the truer, less guarded, more emotional thoughts that lie just beneath the surface. They will elaborate on their point. They will reveal their underlying concern. They will give you the information you desperately need to understand their true position. The second thing that can happen is that the silence gives you a moment to actually process what they just said. Instead of immediately reacting, you are giving your brain time to digest their words, to consider their meaning, and to formulate a thoughtful response rather than a knee-jerk reaction. That small pause makes you appear more considered, more thoughtful, and more in control. The person who is comfortable with silence is always perceived as the more powerful person in the conversation. Practice the 3-second rule. It is a game changer. The second skill of active listening is called paraphrasing or reflecting. This is the art of summarizing the other person's thoughts and feelings in your own words. This is not about mindlessly parroting them back. It is about proving that you have understood. It is a confirmation signal that you are truly tuned into their frequency. The structure is simple. You start with a phrase like, "So, if I'm hearing you correctly," or "It sounds like what you're saying is," or "So you're feeling," and then you summarize the core message or the core emotion they have just expressed. For example, if your colleague says, "I'm just so frustrated. I spent all weekend on this report. I gave it to the director and I haven't heard a single word back. I don't even know if she looked at it." A bad response would be, "Yeah, she's really busy." An active listening response would be to pause for 3 seconds and then say, "So it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated and maybe a little unappreciated because you put in a huge amount of effort and you're not getting any feedback to know if it was worthwhile." What does this accomplish? First, it makes the other person feel a profound sense of validation. The thought in their head is, "Wow, this person gets it. They are actually listening to me." This immediately lowers their defensive barriers and makes them more open to you. Second, it confirms your understanding. If you have misunderstood them, it gives them the opportunity to correct you. They might say, "Well, not really unappreciated. It's more that I'm worried the project is stalled and I don't know what the next steps are." Fantastic. Now you have an even clearer picture of their true concern. You are refining your data in real time. Paraphrasing is not just for negative emotions. It works equally well for positive ones. It sounds like you're really excited about this new opportunity. So, what you're saying is, you feel this is a major breakthrough for the team. By reflecting their emotional state, you are building a powerful connection. You are demonstrating empathy, which is the cornerstone of trust. The third skill is asking clarifying questions. But there is a very important distinction to be made here. We are not talking about interrogating questions. We are not trying to trap them or poke holes in their logic. We are asking open-ended questions that invite them to explore their own thoughts more deeply. These questions are born of genuine curiosity. Closed-ended questions can be answered with a simple yes or no. For example, "So you were angry about that?" That is a closed question. It shuts down the conversation. An open-ended question invites a story. It invites elaboration. The same question, reframed, would be, "How did that make you feel?" The first question leads to a dead end. The second one opens a highway of information. Master the use of open-ended questions that start with words like what, how, and why. For example, what did that look like from your perspective? How did you come to that conclusion? Why is that particular aspect so important to you? Another incredibly powerful clarifying question is simply, "Can you tell me more about that?" This phrase is pure magic. It is non-judgmental. It is a pure invitation. It signals deep interest and encourages the other person to give you more detail, more context, and more of the emotional truth behind their position. When you combine these three skills, the 3-second rule of silence, paraphrasing, and asking open-ended clarifying questions, you create a conversational environment where the other person feels safe, respected, and genuinely interesting. This brings us to the famous 80-20 rule of conversation. In any interaction where your goal is to understand and persuade, you should aim to be listening 80% of the time and talking only 20% of the time. Your 20% should be composed almost entirely of paraphrasing and asking clarifying questions. Your job is not to be the hero of the story. Your job is to be the guide who helps the other person articulate their own story. The result is that you will gain an almost unfair advantage. You will understand their motivations, their fears, their needs, and their objections before you even begin to make your own case. And they will love you for it because you have given them the rarest of human gifts, the feeling of being truly and completely understood. Now, listening is only half of the decoding process. It is about interpreting the audible signals. But what people say is often only a tiny fraction of what they are actually communicating. The real story, the uncensored truth, is told by their body. This brings us to the second part of decoding the human code, learning to see the unspoken language. There is a very famous and very frequently misunderstood statistic that comes from research done by Professor Albert Mehrabian in the 1960s. The study is often cited as saying that communication is 7% the words we use, 38% our tone of voice, and 55% our body language. Now, this is not a universal law. This is not true if you are reading an email or a technical manual. The context of Mehrabian's research is crucial. He was studying how we communicate feelings and attitudes. And in that specific context, when there is a conflict between what our words are saying and what our tone and body are saying, people will overwhelmingly believe the nonverbal signals. If someone says, "I'm so happy for you," through gritted teeth, with a flat tone, and while looking at the floor, you do not believe their words. You believe the 93% of the message being conveyed by their tone and body language. Your job as a decoder is to become a master of observing this nonverbal channel, because it is where the truth resides. It is the language the subconscious mind speaks, and it cannot easily lie. Let's take a tour of the body from head to toe to understand the signals you should be looking for. But first, a critical disclaimer. You must never interpret a single gesture in isolation. A person crossing their arms might not be defensive, they might just be cold. Someone rubbing their nose might not be lying. They might just have an itch. The key to accurate decoding is to look for clusters of signals and, most importantly, to look for deviations from a person's normal behavior. This is called establishing a baseline. Before you can spot a meaningful signal, you have to know what a person looks like when they are in a normal, relaxed, neutral state. In low-stakes conversations, make it a game to observe people. How does your colleague normally sit? How much do they gesture? How much eye contact do they make? This is their baseline. The powerful information comes when you see them deviate from that baseline during a more important conversation. If your normally still and composed boss suddenly starts fidgeting and avoiding eye contact when you ask about the budget, that is a significant signal. You are not a mind reader. You are a change detector. With that in mind, let's start our scan. We'll begin with the face. The face is the most expressive part of the body, but it is also the part we are most practiced at controlling. We learn from a young age to put on a poker face or a social smile. However, leakage still occurs. especially in what are known as micro-expressions. These are fleeting, involuntary facial expressions that last for only a fraction of a second and reveal a person's true underlying emotion. They are almost impossible to fake and very difficult to suppress. You might see a flash of a sneer, indicating contempt, before it is covered by a polite smile, or a flicker of fear in the eyes before it is replaced by a look of calm. You don't need to be a trained expert to start noticing these. The key is to watch closely when you ask a critical question and look for that initial split-second reaction before their conscious mind takes over. The eyes are particularly powerful. When people are genuinely happy or interested, their pupils will dilate. It is an unconscious response. A real smile, known as a Duchenne smile, involves not just the mouth but the muscles around the eyes, creating crow's feet at the corners. A fake social smile only involves the mouth. The eyes remain dead. Where a person looks can also be revealing. A sustained, comfortable gaze signals trust and confidence. Darting eyes or a complete avoidance of eye contact often signals discomfort, anxiety, or in some cases deception. Moving down to the body, we look at posture and orientation. When someone is engaged and interested in you, they will often lean in slightly. Their body and, crucially, their feet will be pointed toward you. The feet are one of the most honest parts of the body because we pay the least attention to them. You might be in a conversation with someone whose head and torso are turned toward you, but their feet are pointed toward the door. Their feet are telling you where they really want to go. They are looking for an escape. This is a powerful signal that you are losing their interest or that they are eager to end the conversation. An open body posture, with arms and legs uncrossed, signals a willingness to engage. It is a receptive and confident posture. A closed body posture, with arms crossed tightly over the chest and legs crossed, often creates a barrier. As we noted, it could mean they are cold, but in the context of a disagreement or a negotiation, it is often a subconscious way of shielding themselves from your influence. They are literally closing themselves off to your message. If you see someone adopt this posture, that is not the time to push your point harder. It is a signal to back off, ask a question, and try to get them to open up again, both verbally and physically. The hands are also incredibly revealing. Confident, dominant individuals often steeple their fingers, touching the tips of their fingers together to form what looks like a church steeple. It is a sign of high confidence in what they are saying. Hands that are hidden, either in pockets or under a table, can signal that a person is holding something back or is not being entirely forthright. Fidgeting with a pen, rubbing the back of the neck, or playing with jewelry are all classic signs of nervousness or anxiety. They are called pacifying behaviors, little self-soothing gestures our bodies do to deal with stress. When you see these, you know you have touched on a sensitive topic. One of the most powerful nonverbal techniques you can use to build rapport is called mirroring, or the chameleon effect. This is the unconscious tendency of humans to mimic the body language of the person they are interacting with. It is a way our brains signal, "I am like you. I am part of your tribe. You can trust me." You can use this principle consciously to accelerate the process of building a connection. The key to effective mirroring is to be subtle. This is not a game of Simon Says. If they cross their arms, you don't immediately cross your arms in exactly the same way. That is obvious and creepy. The technique is to wait a few seconds and then adopt a similar but not identical posture. If they lean back in their chair, you might lean back a little as well. If they are speaking slowly and calmly, you should match your tempo to theirs. If they are high energy and enthusiastic, you should raise your own energy level. You are matching their general vibe, their posture, and their speaking rhythm. When done subtly, the other person will not be consciously aware of what you are doing, but their subconscious mind will register the similarity. It will receive the signal of rapport, and they will feel an unexplainable sense of comfort and connection with you. It is one of the fastest ways to build a bridge to another person's mind. By combining active listening with keen observation of body language, you are gathering a massive amount of data. You are no longer just reacting to their words, you are understanding the full spectrum of their communication. You are seeing the emotional truth that lies beneath the surface. But data is only useful if you can interpret it. This brings us to the final and most crucial piece of the decoding puzzle: finding the core driver. Every single human action, every decision, every word is driven by a deep fundamental need. We are all motivated by a desire to gain something pleasant or to avoid something painful. While our individual personalities are complex, most of these motivations can be distilled down into three core drivers. Your job as a decoder is to listen to their words and watch their body language to figure out which of these three drivers is in the driver's seat for them in this specific situation. The three core drivers are the ego, the heart, and the wallet. Let's break them down. First, the ego driver. This is the fundamental human need to feel important, respected, intelligent, and significant. It is the desire for status and the fear of humiliation. When a person is operating primarily from their ego driver, their world revolves around how they are perceived. They need to look good. They need to be right. They need to feel that they are in control. How do you spot someone being driven by their ego? They often use I statements. They might subtly or not so subtly boast about their accomplishments. They might name drop important people they know. They are highly sensitive to criticism and will become defensive if they feel their intelligence or authority is being challenged. Their body language might be overly confident, perhaps leaning back with their hands behind their head in a display of dominance. To persuade someone driven by ego, you must feed that ego. This is not about insincere flattery, which they can often see through. It is about showing genuine respect for their position, their knowledge, or their experience. You can do this by asking for their advice. Phrases like, "I'd love to get your expert opinion on this," or "You've handled situations like this before. What are your thoughts?" are like music to their ears. You must allow them to feel like they are the author of the solution. You can plant an idea and then give them the credit for it. That's a brilliant point you just made. Building on that, what if we, by framing your proposal as something that will make them look good, increase their status, or reinforce their reputation as a smart leader, you are aligning your goal with their deepest need. Never, ever corner an ego-driven person or make them look bad in front of others. You will create an enemy for life. Always give them a way to save face. The second core driver is the heart. This is the fundamental need to belong, to connect, to be loved, and to be part of a community. It is the desire for harmony and the fear of being isolated or rejected. When a person is operating from their heart driver, their world revolves around their relationships and their sense of belonging to a team, a family, or a cause. How do you spot someone being driven by their heart? They often use we statements. They talk about the team, about collaboration, and about the impact of decisions on other people. They are focused on fairness and building consensus. They value trust and loyalty above all else. Their body language is often open and inviting. They are likely to be good listeners themselves, showing empathy and concern for others. To persuade someone driven by the heart, you must appeal to their need for connection and shared purpose. You must frame your proposal in terms of how it will benefit the group, strengthen the team, or improve relationships. Logic and data are less important to them than the feeling of a shared journey. Use language like, "We're all in this together," or "This will allow us to collaborate more effectively," or "I think this is the right thing to do for our team." Finding common ground is essential. Share a small, appropriate personal story or vulnerability to show that you are human and relatable. They are not persuaded by what is best for one person. They are persuaded by what is best for the tribe. Show them how your idea strengthens that tribe, and they will follow you anywhere. The third core driver is the wallet. Now, this isn't just about money, although that can be a part of it. The wallet driver represents the fundamental need for security, safety, and the efficient use of resources. It is the desire for stability and predictability, and the fear of risk, waste, and loss. When a person is operating from their wallet driver, their world revolves around logic, data, and practical outcomes. How do you spot someone being driven by their wallet? They ask practical questions. What is the return on investment? How long will this take? What are the risks? What is the most efficient way to do this? They are less concerned with how they look, ego, or how everyone feels, heart, and more concerned with what works. They are often skeptical and need to see the proof. Their body language might be more reserved and analytical. To persuade someone driven by the wallet, You must speak their language. You must build your case on a foundation of logic, evidence, and data. Show them the numbers. Present a clear, step-by-step plan. Highlight the efficiency and the safety of your proposal. Frame it in terms of saving time, saving money, or reducing risk. One of the most powerful psychological principles to use with a wallet-driven person is loss aversion, which we will explore in the next chapter. The key is to show them that the cost of inaction is greater than the cost of your proposed action. They are moved not by grand visions, but by a clear, practical, and low-risk path to a tangible reward. Your passion and enthusiasm will not sway them. Your well-researched spreadsheet will. It is important to remember that everyone is a mix of all three drivers, but in any given situation, one will usually be dominant. A hard-charging CEO might be all ego at the office, but become all heart when talking about his children. Your marketing director might be wallet-driven when discussing the budget, but heart-driven when planning the company holiday party. Your task is to use your listening and observation skills to diagnose which driver is at the helm right now. Once you know their core driver, you know the language you need to speak. You know the channel you need to broadcast on to ensure your message is received, understood, and accepted. This is the art of decoding the human code. It is a three-part process. First, you master active listening to understand what they are truly saying. Second, you learn to see the unspoken language of the body to understand what they are truly feeling. And third, you synthesize this information to identify their core driver, to understand what they truly need. This is not about manipulation in the negative sense. It is about empathy at the highest level. It is about making the effort to step outside of your own world and truly understand the world of another. When you can do that, you will have the key to unlocking a level of connection and influence you never thought possible. You will stop seeing people as obstacles to be overcome and start seeing them as puzzles to be understood. And that shift in perspective will change everything. Chapter 3. The Persuader's Toolkit. Words, stories, and frames. In the last chapter, we transformed you into a human decoder. You learned how to silence your own mind and truly listen, how to observe the unspoken truths of body language, and how to identify the core drivers of ego, heart, and wallet that motivate every human action. You now possess the ability to gather a huge amount of information and understand the person in front of you on a much deeper level. You have done the crucial work of receiving. Now, it is time to learn how to transmit. This chapter is your Persuader's Toolkit. Now that you understand the person you are speaking with, we are going to fill your toolbox with specific, powerful, and psychologically proven tools of language and communication. These are the levers you can pull and the buttons you can push to guide a conversation toward your desired outcome. These are not dark, manipulative tricks. They are principles of communication based on a deep understanding of how the human brain is wired. They are the tools that great leaders, master negotiators, and charismatic communicators have been using for centuries, whether they knew the science behind them or not. We are going to break down that science in simple terms and then give you concrete, actionable ways to use these tools in your everyday life. Think of yourself as a master craftsman. A craftsman doesn't use a sledgehammer for every job. They have a specific tool for each specific task. By the end of this chapter, your toolbox will be full. The first tool we are going to place in your kit is perhaps the simplest but also one of the most surprisingly effective. It is a single word, a piece of linguistic magic that can dramatically increase your chances of getting a yes to any request. That word is because. The power of this word was brilliantly demonstrated in a now legendary study conducted in the 1970s by a Harvard social psychologist named Ellen Langer. The experiment was simple. Langer had researchers approach people who were waiting in line to use a busy copy machine on a college campus. They would then try to cut in line using one of three slightly different scripted requests. In the first scenario, the researcher would walk up to the front of the line and say, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?" It was a straightforward request with no reason given. In this case, 60% of the people allowed the researcher to cut in line. A decent success rate, but nothing spectacular. In the second scenario, the researcher would approach the line and say, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?" This time, they provided a real, legitimate reason for their request. What happened? The success rate skyrocketed to 94%. That makes sense. We are generally willing to help someone who has a good reason. But here is where the study becomes fascinating, and where the true power of the word "because" is revealed. In the third scenario, the researcher approached the line and said, "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make some copies?" Think about that reason for a moment. Because I have to make some copies. That is not a reason. It is a completely meaningless, circular statement. Everyone in the line is there to make copies. It provides zero new information. And yet what happened to the success rate? An incredible 93% of people let the researcher cut in line. Why? What is going on here? The conclusion is profound. The human brain is not a perfectly logical machine. It is a machine that relies on shortcuts, on automatic scripts to conserve mental energy. We are conditioned from the moment we can speak to understand that a request is often followed by a reason. The word "because" is the trigger that launches this automatic script in our brains. It signals a reason is coming. And for small, low-stakes requests, our brain often doesn't bother to carefully analyze the quality of the reason. It just hears the trigger word, recognizes the familiar structure of request plus reason, and defaults to compliance. The word "because" is like a key that unlocks the yes door in our minds, even if the rest of the key is made of junk. How can you use this in your life? Start attaching the word "because" to every single request you make. You are not trying to use meaningless reasons, but you are consciously ensuring that you always provide a justification. This simple habit will make your requests feel more legitimate and well thought out. Instead of saying to a colleague, "Can you get me that report by 3 p.m.?" say, "Can you get me that report by 3 p.m. because I need to review the numbers before my meeting with the director tomorrow morning." The second version is infinitely more powerful. It provides context, it signals importance, and it leverages the automatic compliance trigger in the other person's brain. Instead of saying to your child, "You need to put your toys away," say, "You need to put your toys away because we need to keep the floor clear so no one trips and gets hurt." You are not just giving a command, you are providing a reason that fosters understanding and cooperation. Now, a crucial caveat. The senseless reason trick works best for small, low-stakes requests. If you are asking for a $50,000 investment, you cannot say, "You should give me this money because I need some money." For larger requests, the quality of your reason absolutely matters. The logical part of the brain will wake up and scrutinize your justification, but the principle remains the same. A request without a reason is just a demand. A request with a reason is a proposition. Always provide a reason. Make the word "because" one of the most used words in your persuasive vocabulary. It is a small hinge that swings a very big door. The second tool we are adding to your toolkit is far more powerful and nuanced. It is the single most effective communication technology ever invented by humankind. It is the power of a story. As humans, we are wired for story. For tens of thousands of years, before the written word, story was how we passed on wisdom, culture, and survival strategies. A good story engages the brain in a way that a list of facts and figures never can. When you present someone with data, like a PowerPoint slide full of bullet points and statistics, you are speaking to the logical, analytical part of their brain. Let's call this part the auditor. The auditor is skeptical, it is critical. Its job is to find flaws, to question assumptions, and to protect us from bad decisions. It is a gatekeeper. But when you tell a story, something magical happens. You bypass the auditor. A story speaks directly to the emotional, imaginative part of the brain, the part where our deepest beliefs and motivations reside. Let's call this part the believer. Neurological studies have shown that when we are engaged in a compelling story, our brains release a neurochemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin is often called the trust hormone or the moral molecule. It is the chemical that fosters feelings of empathy, connection, and cooperation. A good story literally changes the brain chemistry of your listener, making them more open, more trusting, and more receptive to your message. They don't just hear your story. Their brain activity starts to synchronize with yours. They begin to experience the events and emotions of the story as if they were their own. So how do you craft a compelling story? You don't need to be a Hollywood screenwriter. There is a simple, timeless, and incredibly effective three-part framework you can use to structure any story, whether it is for a business proposal, a job interview, or a conversation with your partner. The framework is the problem, the struggle, and the solution. First, you start with the problem. Every good story begins with a relatable character facing a clear and significant problem. This is the hook. It is what grabs the listener's attention and makes them care. The key word here is relatable. Your listener needs to see a little bit of themselves or their own challenges in the character's situation. For example, instead of starting a business pitch with, "Our product is a synergistic, scalable solution for workflow optimization," you could start with a story. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is a project manager, and like many project managers, her week was a chaotic mess of missed deadlines, endless email chains, and a constant feeling of being overwhelmed. She was great at her job, but her tools were failing her. Instantly, anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed at work is hooked. They recognize Sarah's problem. They feel her pain. Second, you introduce the struggle. This is the heart of the story. A story with no struggle is boring. We want to hear about the obstacles, the challenges, the moments of doubt and failure. The struggle is what builds tension and emotional investment. It makes the final victory feel earned and satisfying. So for Sarah's story, you would continue. Sarah tried everything. She bought new planners. She downloaded a dozen different productivity apps. She even started coming in an hour early every day, but nothing worked. The chaos just got worse. She was on the verge of burning out, and she was starting to think she just wasn't cut out for the job. The struggle makes Sarah's problem feel real and significant. It raises the stakes. Third, you provide the solution. This is where your idea, your product, or your message comes in as the hero of the story. It is the epiphany, the discovery, the turning point that solves the problem. It is the satisfying conclusion that resolves the tension you have built. Continuing Sarah's story. Then, one of her colleagues introduced her to a new kind of software, our product. It wasn't about adding more features. It was about simplifying her entire workflow into one clear visual interface. Within a week, her chaos turned into clarity. Deadlines were being met. Her team was happier. And Sarah, for the first time in years, was able to leave the office at 5 o'clock with a feeling of accomplishment, not anxiety. This simple problem, struggle, solution structure can be applied to almost anything. Are you in a job interview? Don't just list your skills. Tell a story about a time you faced a major problem at your last job, how you struggled to find a solution, and how your innovative approach ultimately saved the day. Are you trying to convince your family to try a new vacation spot? Don't list the features. Tell a story about the problem of your last, stressful vacation, the struggle of finding a place everyone would enjoy, and how this new spot is the perfect solution for creating lasting memories together. Facts tell, but stories sell. The next time you need to persuade someone, resist the urge to lead with data. Lead with a story. Wrap your data inside the story. The story will open their heart and their mind, and the data will then have a clear path to follow. The third tool in our toolkit is the art of framing. A frame, like a picture frame, doesn't change the content of what is being presented, but it dramatically changes how it is perceived. In communication, framing is the art of controlling the context. It is about choosing what aspects of a situation to highlight and what to downplay in order to influence the listener's interpretation and decision. It is one of the most subtle and powerful tools of influence. We are going to look at 3 specific framing techniques: loss aversion, the illusion of choice, and anchoring. First, let's talk about loss aversion. This is a core principle of behavioral economics, identified by the Nobel Prize-winning psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Their groundbreaking research revealed a powerful and irrational bias in the human mind. We feel the pain of a loss approximately twice as powerfully as we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Losing $20 feels much worse than finding $20 feels good. This means that people are far more motivated to act to avoid a loss than they are to act to achieve a gain. As a persuader, You can frame your proposals to leverage this bias. Most people instinctively frame things in terms of gain. They say, if you invest in this new energy-efficient furnace, you will save $300 a year. That is a gain frame. It is logical, but it is not very motivating. To make it more powerful, you reframe it in terms of loss. Every year you continue to use your old, inefficient furnace, you are throwing away $300. Do you feel the difference? The first is a nice-to-have gain. The second is an active, painful loss. It creates a sense of urgency. Let's look at another example, a sales pitch. This software will increase your team's productivity by 20%. That's a gain frame. Now the loss frame. Right now, your team is likely operating at 20% below its potential productivity. How much is that inefficiency costing you every month? The loss frame forces the listener to confront the pain of the status quo. It makes inaction feel like a choice to continue losing. Whenever you are presenting an idea, think about how you can frame the benefits not as a future gain, but as the stopping of a current loss. It is a simple linguistic shift that taps into one of the most powerful motivators in the human psyche. The second framing technique is the illusion of choice, sometimes called a double bind. This is a way of framing a request that presumes a yes to the main question and moves the decision to a secondary, less important detail. It gives the other person a sense of control and autonomy, while gently guiding them toward your desired outcome. This is a classic parenting technique. A parent who asks, "Do you want to go to bed now?" is inviting a no. A smart parent frames the choice differently. They ask, "Is it time for bed? Do you want to wear your blue pajamas or your red pajamas?" The main decision, going to bed, is presented as a foregone conclusion. The child's choice is limited to the pajamas. They feel empowered because they get to make a decision, and the parent gets the desired outcome. This technique is incredibly effective in professional settings. Instead of asking a client, "Would you like to sign up for our service?" which invites a yes or no answer, you could ask, "So, to get you started, would the premium plan or the standard plan work better for you?" You are framing the choice around which plan to buy, not whether to buy. When scheduling a meeting, instead of asking, "Are you free to meet next week?" which is a weak request, you frame the choice. Would Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 10 a.m. work better for you? You are assuming the meeting will happen and giving them control over the timing. This technique works because it moves the conversation past the primary objection and into the logistical details. It respects the other person's need for autonomy while keeping you in control of the overall direction. The third framing technique is anchoring. The anchoring bias is our tendency to rely heavily on the very first piece of information offered, the anchor, when making decisions. Once an anchor is set, we have a hard time moving too far away from it. All subsequent judgments are subconsciously adjusted based on that initial number or piece of information. The classic example of this is in a negotiation. If you are negotiating a salary, the person who makes the first offer sets the anchor. If the employer offers $60,000, that number is now anchored in the conversation. Even if you negotiated up to $65,000, you will feel like you have won, even if you were originally hoping for $75,000. Conversely, if you are the first to speak and you ask for $80,000, that number now becomes the anchor, and the entire negotiation will revolve around it. The final number is likely to be much closer to $80,000 than to $60,000. This is why, in many negotiations, it is a huge advantage to be the first one to put a number on the table, as long as it is a well-researched and justifiable number. Anchoring is not just about price. It can be used to frame expectations. If you're about to give a presentation that is a little dry but has important details, you could anchor the audience's expectations by saying, "The next 10 minutes are going to be quite data-heavy, but these numbers are the critical foundation for the exciting new direction we'll be discussing afterwards." You have anchored the idea that it will be dense, so they are prepared for it, and you have also anchored the idea that something exciting is coming. Mastering framing means you are no longer just presenting information. You are architecting the decision-making process. You are consciously choosing the context and the focus to make your desired outcome the most logical and emotionally appealing choice. The final tool for our toolkit is perhaps the most deeply ingrained social principle of all. It is the law of reciprocity. This is the universal human tendency to feel obligated to give back to others the form of behavior, gift, or service that they have received first. If someone does you a favor, you feel a powerful, often subconscious urge to do a favor in return. This is not just a social nicety, it is a fundamental survival mechanism that has allowed human societies to cooperate and thrive for millennia. The feeling of indebtedness is uncomfortable. We are wired to want to relieve that psychological burden by repaying what we have been given. The legendary persuader, Robert Cialdini, famously illustrated this with the story of the Hare Krishnas. In the 1970s, this religious group struggled to get donations from people in public places like airports. People would actively avoid them. Then they changed their strategy. Instead of just asking for a donation, they would first give the person a gift, a flower, or a book. They would often refuse to take it back, saying, "It is our gift to you." After the person had accepted the gift, they would then ask for a donation. Their fundraising success went through the roof. People who would have never considered donating now found themselves reaching into their pockets. They felt a powerful obligation to repay the gift, even a gift they never wanted in the first place. The key to using the law of reciprocity ethically and effectively is to give first and to give with genuine intent. Before you ever ask for something, find a way to provide value. In a business context, this could be sending a potential client a useful article, offering a piece of valuable advice without asking for anything in return, or connecting them with someone in your network who could help them. You are making a deposit in the relationship bank account. When you later need to make a withdrawal by asking for their business, they will be far more receptive. They will already feel a sense of indebtedness to you. This principle also works on a smaller conversational scale. One technique related to reciprocity is known as the door-in-the-face technique. This involves making a large request that you know the other person will likely turn down. After they say no, you then retreat to a smaller, more reasonable request, which was the one you wanted all along. For example, you might ask a colleague, "Would you be able to take the lead on this entire new project for me?" When they inevitably say they are too busy, you can reply, "Okay, I understand. In that case, could you just help me out by reviewing the budget proposal for it? It would only take about 30 minutes. What happens here is that your retreat from the large request to the smaller one is perceived as a concession. You have given them something. You have moved from your initial position. Now the law of reciprocity kicks in. They feel a subconscious pressure to make a concession of their own, and the easiest way to do that is to agree to your smaller request. These 4 tools, the magic of because, the power of storytelling, the art of framing, and the law of reciprocity, are the cornerstones of effective persuasion. They are not separate tricks to be used in isolation. They are most powerful when woven together. You can tell a story that frames a problem in terms of loss. You can make a request using the illusion of choice and justify it with a because statement. You can provide value up front to trigger reciprocity, and then tell a story that makes your proposal the most compelling solution. Your toolkit is now full. But a toolbox full of powerful instruments is useless and even dangerous in the hands of someone who has not practiced. In the next chapter, we will take these tools out of the box and put them to work. We will move from theory to action, applying these principles to the key conversations and real-world scenarios you face every single day. The craftsman's education is about to begin. Chapter 4. Influence in Action, Navigating Life's Key Conversations. For the past 3 chapters, we have been in the classroom and in the workshop. We have looked in the mirror to forge our own confidence and purpose. We have learned to become master decoders, listening to the words and seeing the unspoken truths of others. We have filled our toolkit with the powerful instruments of persuasion, the leverage of a well-placed reason, the magic of a compelling story, the subtle art of the frame, and the universal law of reciprocity. But knowledge without action is merely potential. A toolbox full of pristine, unused tools is nothing more than a heavy weight to carry. This chapter is where we leave the workshop and step onto the construction site of your life. This is where the blueprints become buildings. We are going to take all the principles, theories, and techniques we have learned and apply them to 3 of the most common, high-stakes, and emotionally charged situations you will face. We will dissect the wrong way to approach these conversations, the way that leads to frustration, failure, and damaged relationships. Then we will construct, step by step, the right way, weaving together our tools to create a powerful, ethical, and effective strategy. This is not about memorizing scripts. It is about understanding the underlying dynamics so that you can adapt, improvise, and navigate any conversation with grace and purpose. Pay close attention, because this is where the real work and the real rewards begin. Let's start with a scenario that fills many people with a unique blend of terror and anticipation. How to ask for a raise. This is a conversation that goes to the very heart of our sense of self-worth, our value in the world, and our financial security. It is no wonder that so many people handle it poorly or avoid it altogether. First, let's paint a picture of the wrong way, the approach that is almost guaranteed to fail. We will call this the unprepared hopeful. The unprepared hopeful decides to ask for a raise based on a feeling, not a strategy. They might feel overworked, or they heard a rumor that a colleague is making more, or their rent just went up. Their motivation is entirely centered on their own needs. They walk into their boss's office, often without an appointment, catching them off guard. They start the conversation with a weak and apologetic tone. "Hey, do you have a minute? I was just, wanting to talk about my salary." Their entire case is built on shaky foundations. They might appeal to tenure. "Well, I've been here for 3 years now, and I think it's about time I got a raise." This argument is weak because it equates time with value, which is rarely true in a business context. Or they might appeal to fairness. "I work just as hard as Susan, and I'm pretty sure she's making more than me." This immediately puts the boss on the defensive and makes the conversation about office gossip rather than performance. Or worst of all, they appeal to their personal problems. "You know, things are just getting so expensive, and I'm really struggling to make ends meet." While your boss might be a compassionate person, the company's payroll is not a charity. It is a budget allocated based on the value employees create. When the boss asks the critical question, "So what kind of increase are you looking for?" the unprepared hopeful has no answer. They might say, "I don't know, just more," or they will throw out a number that is either insultingly low, showing they don't value themselves, or wildly high and completely untethered from reality. When the boss presents any form of pushback or asks for justification, they have nothing to offer. They have no data, no documented accomplishments, no evidence. The conversation quickly becomes awkward and uncomfortable. They leave the office feeling defeated, undervalued, and perhaps even a little embarrassed. Their boss is left feeling that the employee is unprofessional, entitled, and out of touch with their real contribution. The unprepared hopeful not only failed to get a raise, they may have actually damaged their professional reputation. Now, let's throw that entire disastrous approach into the trash where it belongs. We are going to build the blueprint for the right way, the way of the strategic professional. This approach is built on the foundations we have already laid in the first 3 chapters. It is a campaign, not a single conversation, and it begins weeks or even months before you ever step into that office. The process begins with phase 1, the inner work. This is all about chapter 1, mastering yourself. You cannot ask someone else to value you more than you value yourself. You must build your case internally before you ever present it externally. You start by building your evidence log. You create a dedicated document, and every single time you have a win at work, no matter how small, you write it down. Did you solve a tricky problem? Write it down. Did you get a positive email from a client? Copy and paste it into the document. Did you streamline a process and save the team time? Document it and estimate the time saved. Did you mentor a junior colleague? Write it down. Over weeks and months, this document becomes an undeniable record of your value. It is the raw data that will fuel your confidence and form the backbone of your case. It is you systematically keeping the promise to yourself to recognize your own worth. Next, you use the 4 W's of intent to gain absolute clarity. You sit down with a piece of paper and you do the work. What do I want? Be specific. It is not a raise. It is, I want to increase my annual salary from $70,000 to $82,000. You need a precise number. How do you get that number? You do your research. You use websites like Glassdoor and LinkedIn Salary to find out what the market rate is for your role, in your industry, in your geographic location. With your level of experience, your number should be at the higher end of that range, but still rooted in objective data. This anchors your request in reality, not emotion. Who am I talking to? Now you apply your decoding skills from Chapter 2. Who is your boss? What is their primary driver? Are they a wallet-driven manager who only cares about the bottom line, return on investment, and efficiency? If so, your entire case must be framed in the language of numbers and results. Are they an ego-driven manager who cares about their team looking good and their own status within the company? If so, your case must be framed around how your stellar performance makes them and their department look successful. Are they a heart-driven manager who cares deeply about team cohesion, loyalty, and a positive culture? If so, your case should be framed around your commitment to the team, your role as a positive influence, and your long-term future with the company. Most likely, they are a mix, but you need to identify their dominant language. Why should they give it to me? This is where you connect your what to their who. You must translate your accomplishments into their language. For the wallet boss, you say, "My work on the X project directly led to a 15% increase in efficiency, saving the department approximately 400 man-hours this year." For the ego boss, you say, "When the senior vice president praised our department's turnaround on the Y account, it was a direct result of the new system I implemented." For the heart boss, you say, "I'm so committed to the success of this team and I want to take on more leadership responsibilities to help us achieve our goals for next year. I believe my contributions, like the training program I developed for new hires, reflect that commitment." You are not asking for a reward for past work. You are presenting the raise as a wise investment in future value. Walk away. What is your plan B? Do you have savings? Are you actively looking at other job opportunities? Are you willing to accept a bonus or extra vacation time instead of a salary increase? Knowing your walkaway point gives you quiet power. It allows you to enter the conversation not with desperation, but with a calm confidence that says, "I know my value, and I hope we can agree on it. But if we can't, I have other options." Now you move to phase 2, the documentation. This is where you take your messy evidence log and refine it into a clean, professional one-page document. We will call this your value proposition summary. It should have 3 sections. Section 1 is key accomplishments with 3 to 5 bullet points of your biggest wins, quantified with numbers wherever possible. Section 2 is positive feedback with 2 or 3 short quotes from client emails or performance reviews. Section 3 is future goals, where you briefly outline your commitment to the company and the new challenges you are excited to take on. This document is a critical tool. It is a physical manifestation of your value. It acts as a script for you and a leave behind for your boss. It also triggers the law of reciprocity. You are giving them this well-prepared, valuable document before you ask for anything. Finally, we arrive at phase 3, the conversation. You do not ambush your boss. You schedule a meeting. You can send an email that says, "Hi, boss's name. I'd like to schedule a 30-minute meeting with you next week to discuss my performance, my career trajectory here, and my compensation. Would Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 10 a.m. work for you?" Notice the use of the illusion of choice. You are also anchoring the agenda clearly and professionally. You walk into the meeting calm and prepared, not nervous and hopeful. You are not a supplicant. You are a business professional discussing a business proposition. You start the conversation by framing it positively. You could say, "Thank you for meeting with me. I really enjoy working here, and I'm particularly proud of what our team has accomplished this year." Then you tell a story. You use the problem, struggle, solution framework we learned in Chapter 3. You don't just list your accomplishments, you weave them into a narrative. When I took over the quarterly reporting process, the problem, it was taking over 40 hours of manual data entry and was prone to errors, the struggle. I took the initiative to learn some new software functions and built a new automated template. It was a steep learning curve, but now that same report takes only 5 hours to generate and is 100% accurate. The solution. After you have established your value, you hand them your value proposition summary. You say, "I've actually summarized some of my key contributions from the past year to help with our discussion." This allows them to see the data in black and white. It makes your value undeniable. Now you make the ask. You must be direct and confident. You state the number you prepared. "Based on the value I've delivered and the current market rate for my role, I am asking for my salary to be adjusted to $82,000. After you say the number, you stop talking. This is crucial. Do not justify, do not ramble, do not fill the silence. Let the number land. The silence might feel uncomfortable, but you must hold it. The person who speaks first after a number is presented is often the one who loses ground. Now you must be prepared for objections. This is not a conflict, it is a negotiation. This is where you use your active listening superpowers. Your boss might say, "That's a big jump. The budget is really tight right now." The wrong response is to get defensive. The right response is to listen, paraphrase, and ask a clarifying question. "I understand that the budget is a major consideration. It sounds like the timing is the main challenge. Can you tell me more about the budget cycle and when might be a better time to revisit this?" By doing this, you are not ending the conversation. You are gathering information and turning it into a collaborative problem-solving session. You are showing that you are a partner, not an adversary. Whatever their objection, listen, validate the concern, and guide the conversation toward a solution. The conversation should end with clear next steps. This entire process transforms you from a hopeful beggar into a strategic partner. You have built your internal confidence, defined your intent with precision, decoded your audience, and used a powerful toolkit of storytelling, framing, and reciprocity to present an undeniable case for your value. This is how you get a raise. Our second scenario is one that many people face as they advance in their careers: how to lead a team or pitch a big idea. This is about influencing a group, not just an individual. It requires a different, more complex application of our principles. Let's examine the wrong way first. We will call this the tunnel vision expert. The tunnel vision expert is often brilliant. They have a great idea, they have done the research, and they know their plan is the right one. Their mistake is assuming that a good idea is enough. They call a meeting and immediately dive into a 40-slide PowerPoint presentation filled with dense charts, complex data, and technical jargon. They talk at the group, not with them. Their presentation is a monologue, not a dialogue. They make no effort to connect with the people in the room. They don't know who their audience is. They don't know that the finance manager is a wallet driver who is terrified of new expenses, or that the head of human resources is a heart driver who is worried about how this new project will affect team morale, or that the senior engineer is an ego driver who is resentful that this idea wasn't his. The tunnel vision expert speaks the same language to everyone, the language of data and logic, and it falls on deaf ears for most of the room. When people ask questions, the tunnel vision expert sees them as attacks. They get defensive. They say things like, "Well, the data clearly supports this," as if the person asking the question is an idiot for not seeing it. They fail to understand that objections are often not about the data. They are about the underlying emotional needs and fears of the individuals. The meeting ends with a polite but unenthusiastic, "We'll think about it." The idea dies a slow death, not because it was a bad idea, but because it was presented by a poor persuader. The tunnel vision expert leaves the room frustrated, thinking, "Why can't these people see how brilliant this is?" Now, let's construct the right way. The way of the visionary connector. The visionary connector knows that a great idea is only the beginning. The real work is in bringing people on a journey. Their process starts long before the meeting is ever called. First, they do their homework on the audience. This is Chapter 2 on steroids. They map out every single person who will be in that room. They identify the key stakeholders. For each person they ask, what is their role? What are their priorities? And most importantly, what is their primary driver? They make notes. Mark from finance, wallet, needs to see a clear ROI, fearful of risk, must have a detailed budget. Sarah from HR, heart, needs to know how this impacts our people, worried about change and disruption, must frame this in terms of team growth and support. David, the senior engineer, ego, needs to feel respected and that his expertise is valued, fearful of being made irrelevant. must find a way to make him a co-owner of the idea. Next, they define their intent with the 4 Ws, but they do it for the group. What is the single outcome I want from this meeting? Is it budget approval? Is it the formation of a pilot team? Be specific. Why should they, as a group, support this? What is the collective win? This moves beyond individual drivers to a shared vision. Now the visionary connector prepares for the meeting itself, but they throw out the 40-slide data dump. Instead, they build their presentation around a single powerful story using the problem-struggle-solution framework. The story is not about the product or the plan. It is about the company, the team, and the future. The meeting begins. The visionary connector does not start with their idea. They start with connection. They might start by acknowledging the hard work the team has been doing, appealing to the heart driver. They might praise a recent success that a key stakeholder was responsible for, appealing to the ego driver. They are warming up the room, building rapport, and showing that this isn't about them, it's about us. Then, they launch the story. For the last 2 years, we have been the leaders in our market, the established reality. But as we all know, a new competitor has emerged that is faster and more agile. And for the first time, we are starting to lose market share. The problem. We have tried to fight back by working harder, by holding more meetings, by pushing our teams to their limits. But our old processes are holding us back. It feels like we are running in mud, the struggle. At this point, everyone in the room is nodding. They have framed the problem not as a failure, but as a shared challenge. But what if there was a different way? What if we could build a new system that not only helps us catch up, but allows us to leapfrog the competition and redefine the industry? What if we could create a workplace where our best people are freed from tedious administrative work and can focus on the innovation they were hired to do? The solution presented as a vision. Now that they have engaged the emotional brain, the believer, they can introduce the details of their plan. But they do it by speaking the language of each driver. They turn to Mark in finance and say, "Mark, I know your biggest concern is going to be the bottom line. So I've prepared a detailed breakdown on slide 12 that shows a projected ROI of 200% within 18 months and how this actually reduces our operational costs over the long term." They have spoken to the wallet. Then they turn to Sarah from HR. "Sarah, your priority is our people, and it's mine too. This isn't about replacing anyone. This is about empowering them. I've outlined a comprehensive training and transition plan to ensure everyone feels supported and excited about these new skills." They have spoken to the heart. Then they turn to David, the senior engineer. "David, no one knows the technical infrastructure better than you. Frankly, this entire idea is just a concept without your expertise to actually build it. I'm hoping you'll agree to lead the technical feasibility study because you're the only one who can spot the pitfalls we can't see yet." They have spoken to the ego, not with flattery, but with genuine respect, and by giving him a position of power and ownership. Finally, they open the floor for discussion, but they frame it collaboratively. Instead of any questions, they ask, "What are the biggest challenges you see in making this vision a reality?" This powerful question reframes objections as collaborative problem-solving. It makes everyone in the room a partner in the success of the idea. The visionary connector has not just pitched a plan, they have started a movement. They have united a group of individuals with different motivations around a single compelling vision for the future. Our third and final scenario is perhaps the most personal and the most critical for our overall happiness: how to handle a disagreement with a partner, a close friend, or a family member. These are the conversations that can either strengthen our most important bonds or tear them apart. The wrong way is the way of the courtroom battle. In this scenario, both people enter the conversation with the secret goal of proving that they are right and the other person is wrong. It becomes a trial. Each person presents evidence of the other's past wrongdoings. They use absolute and accusatory language like, "You always" and "you never." They interrupt each other constantly, not to understand, but to rebut the other's point. They are not listening, they are just reloading. The conversation escalates, voices get louder. The focus shifts from the original problem, like an unwashed dish, to deep character assassinations. The problem isn't the dish, it's that you're lazy and you don't respect me. The core drivers are in full revolt. The ego is screaming to be right. The heart is terrified of being abandoned or disrespected. The conversation is no longer about finding a solution, it is about winning. But in a relationship, if one person wins the argument, both people lose the connection. The courtroom battle ends in one of two ways, either with a resentful, bitter silence where nothing is resolved, or with a dramatic explosion that causes deep and lasting damage to the trust battery. Now let's build the right way, the way of the collaborative architect. The goal of the collaborative architect is not to win the argument, but to understand the other person's perspective and together build a solution that strengthens the relationship. This requires a profound mindset shift, away from conflict and toward collaboration. It is the ultimate test of your skills from chapters 1 and 2. The process begins with a commitment to a new rule. It is not me versus you, it is us versus the problem. You must see the disagreement as an external issue that you are both facing together as a team. The first step is to manage your own internal state. Before the conversation even begins, you must check your intent. Is your goal to vent, to blame, to win? If so, you are not ready. Your intent must be to understand and to solve. You have to put your own ego in check. This is incredibly difficult, but it is the price of admission to a healthy resolution. The second step is to set the stage for a safe conversation. You don't start a difficult conversation when one person is tired, hungry, or rushing out the door. You say, "I feel like there's something we need to talk about. It's important to me, and I want to give it our full attention. When would be a good time for us to sit down together without any distractions?" This signals respect and seriousness. When the conversation begins, one person must be the first to be brave. One person must choose to be the listener first. Let's assume that person is you. Your only job for the first phase of the conversation is to use your active listening superpowers. You let your partner speak. You let them get everything out. You do not interrupt, you do not defend yourself, you do not correct their version of the facts. You just listen. You use the 3-second rule to give them space. You make eye contact to show you are engaged. Your entire being should be focused on one question. What is the world like for them right now? As they speak, you listen for the emotion behind the words. Are they hurt? Are they scared? Are they feeling disrespected? After they have finished, you use the most powerful relationship tool in existence, paraphrasing their emotion. You say, "Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding. It sounds like when I said that thing last night, it made you feel completely dismissed and disrespected, like your opinion doesn't matter to me. Is that right?" This moment is critical. You are not agreeing that you intended to dismiss them. You are not agreeing that their interpretation is the correct one. You are simply validating that their feeling is real. You are proving that you have heard them. The feeling of being heard is often all the other person truly wants. You will physically see their body relax. Their defensive walls will begin to crumble. Only after they have confirmed that you understand their position by saying, "Yes, that's exactly it," do you have permission to share your own perspective. And when you do, you must use I statements, not you statements. You do not say, "Well, you were being overly sensitive." You say, "From my perspective, I was feeling stressed about the deadline and I was trying to solve the problem quickly. It was never my intention to make you feel dismissed, and I am truly sorry that my words had that impact on you." You are taking ownership of your actions and their impact without getting into a pointless debate about your intentions. Once both perspectives are on the table and both people feel heard, you can shift to the final phase, building the solution together. You frame it as a team. Okay, so how can we as a team handle these stressful situations better in the future? What can I do to be more mindful in those moments? And what can you do to help me see when I'm falling into that pattern? You are now collaborative architects, designing a better way forward. You might even use the illusion of choice. So for next time, would it be better if I ask for a moment to myself to de-stress, or if I make a point of stopping and asking for your input before I act? This approach de-escalates conflict, builds profound trust, and turns disagreements into opportunities for deeper connection. It is not easy. It requires immense self-control and a commitment to prioritize the health of the relationship over the temporary satisfaction of being right. But it is the only way to build a foundation of trust that can weather any storm. These three scenarios, asking for a raise, pitching an idea, and handling a disagreement, are just examples. But the underlying blueprint is the same. It is a process of preparing your inner self, decoding your outer world, and then skillfully and ethically applying the tools of language, story, and framing to build bridges, not walls. This is influence in action. This is how you move through the world with purpose, grace, and effectiveness. Chapter 5. The Influencer's Legacy. Persuasion with Purpose. We have come a long way on this journey together. We began by looking in the mirror, forging a foundation of authentic confidence and unwavering purpose. We learned to quiet our own minds and become master decoders of the human code, listening to the words and seeing the truths that others could not. We filled our toolkit with the powerful instruments of persuasion, learning how to shape language, story, and context to guide conversations and decisions. And in the last chapter, we put those tools to work, building practical strategies for navigating some of life's most challenging and important interactions. The skills you now possess are immensely powerful. The ability to understand and influence human behavior is the fundamental currency of success in every area of life, from your career to your relationships to your own personal growth. But with this power comes a profound and unavoidable responsibility. This final chapter is the most important one of all, because it is not about a technique or a strategy. It is about the compass that will guide how you use these tools. It is about the fundamental choice you must make between persuasion for mutual benefit and manipulation for selfish gain. It is about the legacy you will build, one conversation, one interaction, one choice at a time. Let us draw a very clear and bright line in the sand. On one side of this line is ethical persuasion. On the other side is toxic manipulation. The tools we have discussed can be used for either. The choice is yours in every moment. The difference between the two is not in the tool, but in the intent. Toxic manipulation operates from a win-lose mindset. The goal of the toxic manipulator is to get what they want at the expense of the other person. They see people not as partners, but as pawns to be moved around on their personal chessboard. They might use the tools of listening and decoding not to empathize, but to discover a person's deepest insecurities and fears so they can exploit them. They might tell a story not to inspire and connect, but to deceive and mislead, deliberately omitting key facts that would lead to a different conclusion. They might use framing techniques like loss aversion to trigger someone's anxiety and pressure them into a decision that is not in their best interest. They might use the law of reciprocity by offering a small, hollow gift to create a sense of obligation for a much larger, unfair request. The victory of the toxic manipulator is always hollow and short-lived. They might win the deal, they might win the argument, they might get the compliance they seek in the moment. But they do so by causing damage, by creating resentment, and by destroying the most valuable and fragile asset in any human interaction: trust. They are playing a finite game, trying to extract as much value as they can in the short term, without any regard for the long-term consequences. On the other side of the line is ethical persuasion. Ethical persuasion operates from a win-win mindset. The goal of the ethical persuader is to guide someone to a decision that is genuinely beneficial for everyone involved. It is about creating value, not just claiming it. The ethical persuader uses the tools of listening and decoding to truly understand the other person's needs, desires, and challenges, so they can find a solution that works for them. They tell stories that are honest and inspiring, that paint a truthful picture of a better future that both parties can share. They use framing techniques to help people see a situation in a new, more constructive light, empowering them to make a choice that aligns with their own goals. They use the law of reciprocity by giving value freely and genuinely, with the belief that creating goodwill and strong relationships is its own reward. The victory of the ethical persuader is solid and lasting. It is a victory that strengthens relationships, builds reputations, and creates a foundation of deep and resilient trust. They are playing an infinite game, where the goal is not to win, but to keep the game going, to foster collaboration, and to build a network of allies who want to work with them, help them and see them succeed. How do you know which side of the line you are on? I want to give you a simple but powerful question you can ask yourself before any attempt to influence. It is the transparency test. Ask yourself this: if the other person knew everything I know and could see my true intentions with perfect clarity, would they still willingly and happily make the choice I am guiding them toward? If the answer is a resounding yes, then you are practicing ethical persuasion. Your goal is aligned with their own best interests. You are a guide, a partner, a trusted advisor. If the answer is no, or if you feel a hesitation or a twinge of guilt when you ask the question, then you are drifting into the territory of toxic manipulation. You are relying on their ignorance of your true motives to get what you want. You are treating them as a means to an end. The transparency test is your moral compass. Let it always guide you toward the win-win. To make this concept even more concrete, I want you to visualize a powerful metaphor. I call it the trust battery. Imagine that for every single person you know, from your spouse to your boss to the person you buy coffee from every morning, there is an invisible battery that represents the level of trust they have in you. This battery has a charge from 0 to 100%. Every single interaction you have with that person either charges the battery or drains it. When you keep a promise, no matter how small, you charge the battery. When you listen to them without interrupting, you charge the battery. When you admit you were wrong, you charge the battery. When you are honest even when it is difficult, you charge the battery. When you use your skills to help them achieve a win-win outcome, you make a massive deposit and charge the battery. These are the small, consistent acts of integrity that build a relationship that can withstand pressure and last a lifetime. A fully charged trust battery means you have influence, you have rapport, and you have the benefit of the doubt. Conversely, every time you break a promise, you drain the battery. Every time you tell a small white lie, you drain the battery. Every time you talk about them behind their back, you drain the battery. Every time you use their vulnerability against them or manipulate them into a win-lose outcome, you cause a massive power surge that can drain the battery to 0 in an instant. And here is the most important thing to understand about the trust battery. It charges very, very slowly, and it drains very, very quickly. It can take 100 small deposits of integrity to charge the battery to 100%. But it can take only one significant act of betrayal to drain it completely. And once a trust battery is drained to 0, it is incredibly difficult and sometimes impossible to ever recharge. You can apologize, you can make amends, but the memory of the betrayal remains. The connection is permanently damaged. It is like a ceramic vase that has been shattered. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks will always be visible. The toxic manipulator is constantly draining their batteries with everyone around them. They move from person to person, from job to job, extracting what they can and leaving a trail of depleted relationships in their wake. They may achieve short-term success, but they will ultimately find themselves alone, isolated, and distrusted. The ethical persuader, on the other hand, sees every interaction as an opportunity to make a small deposit. They are patient. They are consistent. They understand that the slow, steady charging of their trust batteries with everyone in their network is the single greatest investment they can make in their long-term success and happiness. Before you act, always ask yourself, will this action charge or drain the trust battery? This leads us to a fundamental reevaluation of our ultimate goal in communication. Many of us are raised in a culture that celebrates debate and argument. We are taught to be good at defending our position and attacking the weaknesses in others' positions. We are conditioned to believe that the goal of a conversation, especially a disagreement, is to win. But this is a profound and damaging misconception. The goal is not to win. The goal is to connect. Let that sink in for a moment. What if you entered every single conversation not with the intention of imposing your will or proving your point, but with the primary intention of creating a connection with the person in front of you? How would that change your behavior? If your goal is to connect, you stop thinking about what you are going to say next, and you start truly listening. You become genuinely curious about the other person's world. You see their perspective not as something to be defeated, but as a landscape to be explored. Active listening, which we discussed as a technique in Chapter 2, becomes your natural way of being, because you are driven by a sincere desire to understand. If your goal is to connect, you see objections and disagreements not as attacks, but as valuable information. An objection is simply a sign that you have not yet fully understood the other person's needs or fears. It is an invitation to ask more questions, to dig deeper, and to strengthen the connection by showing that you are willing to engage with their concerns. If your goal is to connect, you abandon the need to be right. This is a monumental act of letting go of your ego. You realize that you can be right, or you can have a relationship. Very often you cannot have both. The momentary satisfaction of proving your point is a cheap prize compared to the lasting value of a strong, trusting relationship. When connection is the goal, you start looking for the third way. You don't see it as my way versus your way. You see it as an opportunity to co-create a solution that is better than what either of you could have come up with alone. This mindset shift from winning to connecting is the final and most important key to becoming a master of influence. Because paradoxically, when you stop trying so hard to win, you start winning more than you ever thought possible. People will be drawn to you. They will want to work with you. They will open up to you. They will trust you. Your influence will grow not because you are a clever talker or a skilled debater, but because you are a safe harbor, a person who makes others feel seen, heard, and respected. Your power will come not from the force of your arguments, but from the strength of your connections. As we reach the end of our time together, I want you to take a moment and think about your legacy. I know that can sound like a grand and intimidating word, but your legacy is not something that will be written on a tombstone years from now. You are building your legacy right now in this very moment. You are building it with every email you send, every meeting you attend, every promise you keep, and every conversation you have. It is the cumulative effect of all your small daily choices. Think about the people you admire most in your own life. Who are the people who have had the most positive influence on you? It is probably not the loudest person in the room, or the one who always had to have the last word. It is likely the person who listened when you needed to talk, the person who believed in you when you doubted yourself, the person who guided you with wisdom and integrity, who made you feel capable and understood. They were ethical persuaders. They were playing the long game. The tools and skills in this book are powerful. You can use them to get a raise, to close a deal, to lead a team. And I want you to do all of those things, but I also want you to aim higher. Use these skills to be the person who de-escalates a toxic family argument. Use them to mentor a younger colleague and help them find their own confidence. Use them to understand your partner on a deeper level than ever before. Use them to unite a divided community group around a shared purpose. Use them to convince your own inner critic that you are worthy and capable of achieving your dreams. True power, the kind that creates a lasting and positive legacy, is not the ability to control people. It is the ability to empower them. It is not about bending others to your will. It is about aligning your will with a greater good and inspiring others to join you on that journey. It is about building bridges, not empires. It is about charging the trust batteries of everyone you meet, leaving them a little better off than you found them. That is persuasion with purpose. That is a legacy of influence worth building. This isn't the end of a book, it's the beginning of your practice. The principles we've discussed today aren't just ideas to be heard. They are skills to be developed. They require attention, practice, and a genuine desire to connect with the people around you. The journey to becoming a more effective, understanding, and influential person doesn't stop here. The conversation continues. To keep exploring the depths of human psychology and mastering the art of communication, make sure you remain part of this ongoing exploration. New insights, new lessons, and new strategies are always just around the corner. Continue this journey with us.